What is up, everybody? We are live on Facebook and YouTube. This is the Going Broadway podcast. Thanks for tuning in and hanging out with us as always. My name is Alex. To my left is Cole. I hope everyone is having a good start to your day. Cole, what's happening?
Man, I'm doing good. How are you?
Doing all right. I was going to say something. I totally blanked. Oh, that's what it was. I don't know if anyone has checked out the, I think it was part 1 and 2 of the Bulls Dynasty / MJ documentary that was on ESPN. I know we're a wrestling show. I wanted to bring this up, though. I was all excited to watch it, and I just got busy, so I need to go back and watch it. So we're going to tie that in a little later in the show, and I'll explain what that means. But I'll tell you what, let's just jump right in. So I told Cole I'm going to give him the reins as far as anything he wants to bring up, talk about, chat about, and then we'll go from there. So Cole, take it away.
Well, first, there was like 2 or 3 things I just want to reminisce on SmackDown a little bit, because I thought some of these things were actually pretty well done. Given the circumstances, I thought the start. Did you get to watch SmackDown?
I did not.
The start of the show with the Moment of Bliss where they interview Braun Strowman was actually really cool. With how they're kind of playing the storyline, I was hoping this would kind of, they would connect the dots this way.
Pause real quick, and guys, I apologize. I'm messing with our screen here. It's doing something weird, so just bear with us. I think I got it fixed though. Anyway, continue.
So they do the interview with Braun Strowman. He's kind of talking, congratulating them on their title victory with the women's tag belts. And then there's like this little gift in the corner. And he was like, Alexa, you didn't have to get me a gift for coming on your show. Alexa and Nikki are like, did you get him a gift? Because I didn't get him a gift. What's that gift? And he opens it, and inside this box is his old black sheep mask from the Bray Wyatt family.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, man, that was clever. I was like, Bray Wyatt was a little, or not Bray, Braun was a little cheesy trying to get to the present. It was a little bit of a cheesy build to opening it. But overall, I thought that was a pretty unique way to keep that storyline going and kind of taking it in the direction that it needs to go with the mind games.
I do like the fact that WWE is becoming less afraid of exploring past gimmicks, or maybe that's not the right way to phrase it, but it seems like WWE has been very shy-offish when it comes to bringing up maybe old gimmicks that I don't want to say haven't necessarily worked, but just they're very much okay. This sports entertainers persona. I like how the fans identify him now. So it used to be we're not going to bring up past characters, so to speak, but it's nice that they're kind of going back to not being afraid to do that, which they kind of did that in the Attitude Era a little bit, and then they got away from it for a long time, and now it's like they're not afraid to do that, which is nice. That's one thing I kind of liked about the Cena Fiend thing at WrestleMania, where they kind of mentioned Husky Harris and just the prior Bray Wyatt that was a cross between Bray Wyatt and the Fiend now. So
yeah, I'm liking the whole Bray Wyatt just overall gimmick right now, because every feud he's pretty much had has resulted back to something that happened in his career, but it usually ties to somebody's gimmick that's no longer a gimmick now.
Right. Real quick before you keep going, I forgot to mention, guys, this is going to be an Ask the Host show. We'll get to that after we go through our headlines, blurbs, whatever you want to call it. Ask us, like I've said on our social media platforms, you can ask us anything you want, as long as, again, keep it clean. As long as it's not too personal. But even if it's not wrestling related, you can ask us anything you want. And we'll get to those questions in order that we receive them. So we did have a few questions that were posted on our Facebook page yesterday, so we're going to get to those first, and then we're literally going to go in order of how they are asked on our stream right now. So if you want to get your questions in now, feel free. The earlier you get them in, the more likely we'll get to them.
Right. So I thought that was interesting. I've liked what's going on there. I wanted to pick your brain on this a little bit just because I thought it was interesting that someone brought it up. One of the groups that I'm in was talking about, is it weird that Tamina is now getting a push the second that a Jimmy Snuka Dark Side of the Ring episode airs and kind of puts a little bit of, I don't know what kind of word you want to put on, just puts a little bit of negativity maybe on the Snuka name, more or less, even though I felt like it was very well done. I don't feel like it made me think less of Jimmy Snuka than I already knew about the story, but I'm just interested to kind of pick some people's thoughts. Is this a push to just kind of, is this a happy coincidence? Like, is she just getting pushed because they have nobody else right now to really push, and this is kind of a filler until the Sasha turn, or, what does that look like to you?
It's an interesting coincidence, but if I were WWE, if I'm wanting to stay away from it, I'd almost, and I get that logic, but if I'm WWE, I'd almost want to don't even put Tamina on TV, just like completely stray away from it from anything Snuka related altogether. Now, granted, and for good reason, Tamina has not used the Tamina Snuka name for quite a while. I don't know how long it's been. I don't know when the Snuka was dropped. My guess is probably around the time that all of this surfaced again back in 2012, 2011, whenever it was. So I don't know. Again, I see that logic. I see that perspective in terms of, we want a prior Legends name to still have credibility and to not have any negativity associated with it. And a lot of our fan base, if I'm WWE, I'm thinking a lot of our fan base knows that Tamina is from the Snuka family, and we want there to remain some prestige with that name, especially since Jimmy Snuka is still in, again, if I'm WWE, still in our Hall of Fame. But if I don't want any of the negative press or publicity, I'd almost just say, Tamina, we're going to put you off to the side here until this Dark Side of the Ring talk, until it kind of passes or whatever. And really, maybe it'd probably be over in 2 months,
right?
If that long. So
the reason why I bring that up is that she was already kind of to the wayside to begin with. So to me, it didn't make a whole lot of sense to bring her back in unless they were trying to build something with that.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing I found interesting was that majority of Tamina's career as of more recent has been a heel, and she's kind of got a face gimmick going right now because of who she's going up against.
Right.
And so, and I don't know if they brought her in just because Sasha was kind of team bad, and it kind of has like they have like a relationship that dates back. So maybe there'll be some mind games that play into a Sasha Banks turn. I do think Sasha Banks will win the Money in the Bank ladder match, which is where you'll see her eventually cash in on Bayley. But that's where I'm kind of like, I just thought it was an interesting thing that somebody brought up in a group, and it kind of makes sense with the timing. Sheamus fights a nobody, and then kind of hints at a Jeff Hardy feud,
mm-hmm.
which I thought was interesting. I think the two, because of their knowledge of the business, can put on a decent feud. I just hope it leads to both of them getting a decent push.
Agreed.
This one I thought was interesting. Dana Brooke over Naomi to go into the women's Money in the Bank ladder match. What do you think about her kind of getting this push for the Money in the Bank ladder match over someone like Naomi at that? And then she's also got a tag team women's championship match with Carmella this Friday.
I think it's kind of twofold. If WWE is going this route, I commend them for it, and maybe this is why they're doing what they're doing with Tamina. They're trying something new. They're putting different faces in these more prominent title picture roles. If that's what they're doing, I commend them for it. But at the same time, and we've had a few people comment on this as well, and I think I'm more inclined to agree with these comments. I think it's largely in part due to some of their talent or their talent pool is reduced at the moment, because WWE is not going to get into a battle with anyone that is not comfortable working like that. It's just, again, they're going to avoid any kind of negative press, or at least as much as they can to this point. I get with the releases that they just had, you can't really avoid that. They're trying to trying to stay a profitable company, and I'll talk more about that later. But I think it is more due to, in part, because they have talent, and for good reason, that they don't feel comfortable competing, no matter what kind of measures they're taking, no matter how many times they change the ring ropes, how many times they change the ring canvas. And so I think they just have the talent that's saying, I'm willing to work, and WWE is rewarding them.
Most definitely. And so the last thing I want to bring up just about SmackDown. So the New Day wins the tag belts in the second round of the singles matches of tag team defend.
What are they up to now? 8?
And I thought this was an interesting thing because they did have the hacker gimmick promo that was cut during this match as well, or sometime that night. I want to say I thought it was during this match, but I could be wrong. But they kind of hinted at a tag team breaking up, like the hacker hinted at there was, and this had a lot of people talking in all the different groups and stuff that I'm in, on not just who the hacker is, but what tag team it is that they're getting ready to break up. And so I started to think about it, and I started to look at all the tag teams that are out there, what storylines it would make sense. They did hint at the Boss and Hug connection, and which would make sense because of the title belt being on the line, and or with Sasha and her kind of hinting that way.
Mm-hmm.
But someone brought up the New Day, and we've talked about this before, that at some point the New Day has to split up. I would like to see it done in a clean way, where kind of like the Shield, where they could always come back, reunite, have a friendship. I thought the way they kind of did the Kofi Kingston thing was unique, because they didn't really break them up, but they were broken up. Like Kofi wasn't doing New Day matches, he was doing Kofi matches.
Right.
And so I'm interested to see if maybe a Big E push is coming, if they decided to go that route. But they obviously, the Mandy and Sonya tag team already broke up, so that's not an option. But they hinted at all the tag teams that were on SmackDown. So I obviously believe people are trying to tell me that the person that is the hacker is CM Punk.
No.
Let's just stop, because that's not going to happen.
He wouldn't agree to that gimmick. There's no way.
I'm going to sell every single one of you real quick on the fact that it's Ali. Not just the fact that it's his symbol that's on the video, anything like that. If you take a good look at his hand, it looks at first glimpse like it's a white hand, but if you look at it in some of the other promos, it is not white. I'll tell you that right now. Secondly, he was a police officer. His gimmick is that he'll like to investigate. He'll like to solve mysteries and dig deep into people's past. And he would have connections with people who would have all the spy gear and the gear that he has to be what he is. And he's always been the kind of guy to stand for justice and stand for the right thing. So I'm convinced it's Ali, but I want to hear your thoughts. What tag team on SmackDown right now do you think is about to be broken up or have problems that are going to be revealed that will lead to a split or issues within the group?
So I hope. So I'm going to answer that in two parts. So I hope it's not Ali, because this gimmick, I don't think Ali's not really been around long enough to. How can I phrase this? I don't think WWE fans are as familiar enough with him for that gimmick to be as big of a deal as they are, as WWE is making it out to be. Like, they are featuring this in a very prominent role. I feel like if it's Ali, it won't get over, and I could be wrong. My initial thought was and this is this has been since Killer Cross has been revealed to not be it. Someone else said this on the stream, and again, I'm kind of answering this in two parts. So to answer your question, I think it's New Day. I think this is a longer build. I get that they just won the tag titles, but I think this is a longer build that they're going to split up. I'd be okay with this hacker being Xavier Woods. I'm not saying it is him. I'd be more okay with it being Xavier Woods than Ali. And I agree, it's not a Caucasian individual. Like anybody that thinks that it's a white person, it's just the lighting on that particular photo or promo or whatever it is you looked at. I just think if it's Ali, I think it's just going to flop. Like, I don't think fans are familiar enough with him. He hasn't been around long enough for A, has not been around long enough, and two, he's not been on TV for quite some time to the point where whenever he does come back, fans might just be like, who's this guy?
Right.
Xavier Woods has been around for a while, and it could plant the seed for, again, like you said, plant the seed for some kind of division, and I think if they did that, it would be okay from the standpoint that, so the New Day splits up, all three do their own thing, and whether it's Xavier Woods doing this gimmick or role, planting the seed for a division, and maybe Kofi and we're just kind of playing fantasy booking right now. So maybe they split, maybe they don't all split up, but maybe Xavier Woods still acts as a Sami Zayn type manager, still competes in the ring, but acts as more of a manager, mouthpiece, whatever for Big E. Maybe those two go heel. Maybe Kofi stays a face. And they give Big E his run that he's, quite frankly, in my opinion, deserved for quite some time. So
that's an interesting take. Like I don't personally see it happening. It looks like Ali to me.
I agree.
It would be great. I think it would be a good flip. Like people, I think someone's saying people would flip. Yeah, I think like anybody would if it was Xavier. I see the idea. He's got technology background. He's a Harvard graduate. Like there's a lot of things that you could say about him. But yeah, I'm kind of like, it just makes more sense with the way they've booked it that it looks like Ali. But I definitely see where you're coming from, where I could see it being a flop if it was Ali versus it being somebody else.
I think if it's Ali, it will be a flop, just because he's not. If he had been in WWE for say 3, 4, 5 years and he'd had some traction or whatever, but he'd only been on. So what's Ali's history? So I don't even remember. Was he in NXT?
He was I don't remember if he was NXT. I saw him on 205 Live
That's what it was. Okay, so I'm just gonna look this up real quick because I want to kind of put into perspective why I think this would flop. So he didn't come to WWE until 2016. He debuted on 205 Live. I think during the Cruiserweight Classic, but I'm gonna make sure that that's correct. Yeah, so it was. Yeah, June 2016, he debuted on the Cruiserweight Classic. He was on 205 Live for about 2 years. 205 Live is about as obscure as you can get and still be on WWE programming. I mean, maybe next to being on like the main event or whatever. He didn't come to SmackDown until 2018. So think about that. He was on SmackDown from... So this was
because he started off on Raw after 205 Live, though, right?
Nope, no. So he might have been on Raw programming, but he was not officially
on the roster.
So I don't see anything about him being on Raw. So he went to SmackDown. His first appearance wasn't until December 2018 on SmackDown, and then he wasn't even on SmackDown for a year before they took him off TV.
So the only reason why I could see it being Ali is that we have to date back a little bit. They had him booked to win the Money in the Bank ladder match at one point in time until the last minute switch for Brock Lesnar.
Agreed. He had a substantial push, but it's long since been forgotten about.
So I'm just curious if that they're still convinced that they have something for him long term in the main card title picture. And that's where I'm interested, because this seems like a gimmick that has less of him wrestling and more of him doing something else. If this is a slow build, he doesn't use his real voice. He has very small amount of lines to say. So he doesn't have a huge promo to cut. It's more a lot of video editing on WWE's creative side of things to make it look the way it does. So I just think it's an interesting gimmick. It's definitely something to keep your eyes on. But I feel like this is one of those, revealing Rikishi as the guy. Be careful who you reveal as the hacker, because
wait, hold on. Remember this, guys?
It's me, Austin.
Or
It's me, Austin. It was me all along, Austin.
that's my point, is that we want to make sure that it's somebody that's going to keep you watching after the reveal.
Yeah, and it wouldn't keep me watching. I mean, I agree Ali needs to be in a prominent role, but this isn't it. Ali's just fantastic in the ring. I mean, he's got great in-ring work. His ring psychology is far beyond his time in wrestling. I mean, I know he was working on he was working in the indies for like 10 years prior to coming to WWE. I'm going to look that up real quick because I forgot exactly what it said. I think since like 2000 since 2000. So he worked 13 years on the independent circuit before coming to WWE. So he has in-ring experience. But this is not the time to put him in a gimmick whenever he'd only been on, and I'm calling Raw and SmackDown the main roster. I'm just, I hate calling it that, but it is what it is. He's only been on the main roster for less than a year. So this is not the time to be putting him in a gimmick. Unfortunately, I agree. I think it is going to be Ali, and I think it's going to flop. So